Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today I back up once again by Fluff and Jake.
What's up, beautiful people?
What's going on, y'all?
And today we are going over more Set 19 revealed cards. A couple days late, but you know what? It's a busy weekend. Let's get over it. Today we're going to go over the secondary red deck, which is the Android 13. And we're going to start with the front side of the leader. Before that, keep in mind there's buttons. Feel free to click them there for a reason. And let's get into it. Jiro's Supercomputer. Permanent, this card can't attack. Activate means switch this card to rest mode, look up to 5 cards on top of the deck, add up to 1 red Android card and mount them to your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards. The awakening condition of this card is if your life is 4 or less, or if you have 2 or more energy and 1 or more Android 14 and Android 15 cards, both red with energy cost of 1 in your battle area and or drop, you may switch this card and up to 1 of your energies active mode, and then add cards from your life to your hand until you have 6 cards left, which I think I like the idea of always restanding a leader that doesn't normally benefit from attacking into active mode, except for Sid. But we're not going to talk about old decks.
The concerning thing about this side of the leader for me is generally leaders that can't attack are generating you more advantage on the turn than this card is. So you're only generating 1 card out of your hand, and it is a search, but it's just a little concerning to me that they decided to not make this leader attack, which I get it. It's a computer. It's not supposed to attack. And that fits the theme. But at the same time, is that a little too restrictive at this point in the game?
I would agree with that. They could have let this card attack. They could have let you pick, look up to top 5, add up to 1 red Android among them. They could have let you just go pick an Android, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, most leaders that can't attack, you're correct, will generate at least 2 cards of advantage. With the exception of, like, the front side of Hatch, but the back side makes up for it.
There is a small chance that you may whiff on that too, which is unfortunate. I will say, ideally, this deck wants to go first, and because you're not going to attack anyways in turn 1, so it works out for your benefit. And when your opponent attacks, you literally just combo those 2 cards off, put them in your drop, and there you go. You can awaken now.
Yeah.
Once you've awakened, you become Android 13, Terror's Inception. Auto. When this card attacks, choose 1. Play up to 1 Android 14 or 15 card, both red with energy cost of 1 from your hand, or you draw 1 card. Auto. Place 1 Android card from your Z energy in its owner's drop area. When you play a red Android card, add up to 1 red Android card from your drop to your Z energy. There's some cycle going on there, because pretty much what you're doing is that you're just switching out cards from your drop into your Z energy.
We'll see as we review. I think it's the Z leader that really requires there to be specific cards in your Z energy at all times. So this kind of helps facilitate that and set that up.
Okay, so my reaction just now proves I only read a few of these cards ahead of time. That makes so much more sense. Holy crap. Okay, let's go into the Z Awaken. Because obviously that effect will benefit the Z Awaken. For 1 energy, when your life is 4 or less, and it has to be a red Android 13 card, so this is the only leader. And I'm getting the theme idea that every deck will have a Z leader specifically meant for that leader in this next set. When this card attacks, play up to 1 Android 14 or 15 card, both red with energy cost of 1 from your hand or drop, which I do like the idea of playing a card when you attack. And based on what those cards are, may benefit you. Now, this card doesn't actually get a draw, but it does have an activate battle once per turn. Place 1 Android 13 card, 1 Android 14 card, and 1 Android 15 card from your Z energy to the owner's drop. You draw 1, then this card gains 5,000 power and double strike for the turn. That could come in pretty clutch, but the problem is that there's no way this leader will go away. So once you've established this leader and you cannot get game on that turn, you're losing out on potential draws that normal leaders will give you. So when we go over the 1-drops, we'll see if it's important or not.
Would have liked to have seen this Z leader be a base 20,000 to just kind of be an upgrade from the Awaken side of the leader. There's a lot of setup that has to occur in order for this Z leader to be used practically. It takes 2 Z energy to play, which is fine, but then in order to get its activate battle, you have to place 3 cards.
Mm-hmm. And it has to be
3
specifically
cards,
13,
and they're
14,
specific. 15. Yeah, they're very specific to what cards they have to be. So this card doesn't really feel like an improvement or an upgrade to me. It feels like a gimmick and a trap. Just kind of reading the effect, it feels trappish. Like you're going to make poor plays to ensure that you can get this off, at various intersections throughout the game.
This leader is very similar to Gotenks, for those who aren't familiar with that Z leader. That Z leader pays 1 to Z Awaken, and it costs 3 Z energy. And then to do its big effect, you have to have a Goten and a Trunks in your Z energy, where this one's kind of reverse. It costs 2, but you need 3 cards in your Z energy.
Yeah.
I would agree with Fluff overall. Just unimpressive, and really seems like they were afraid to let this card fly when they were designing it.
Going over the Z battle card for the deck, which I don't know how much you're going to be using this card. And if you're using this card a lot, you're probably not using the Z leader a lot, because this one takes 3 Z energies just to place one and 2 regular energy. But it is a deflect, it is unique, it's dual attack, it's a blocker. A lot of good things going on there. Permanent. If you have a red Android card with an energy cost of 7 or more in play, you reduce this card's energy cost in your Z deck by 1. So initially being 1 cost, that's not bad. Auto once per turn. When this card attacks, use up to 1 Android card from your drop in a combo with its skills negated for the turn. And this card gains barrier until the end of your opponent's next turn, so it kind of keeps it alive, which is great. And it helps you put cards back into your Z deck. Now that your Z energy, which is once per turn, unfortunately, so you can't do this attack twice. And then on once per turn, when this card activates blocking, switch the card to active mode. So initially, it can either be 2 attacks for you, or it can be 1 attack and then 2 blocks for you.
I don't mind this card very much. I think this card is designed fine, and it does kind of help achieve the different things that the deck itself wants to be. This is another generic red extra card that you can use. It won't get the energy reduction, but it is another generic red Z battle card that we'll be able to use in other red decks moving forward.
Yeah, I think this is the card I like the most that we've looked at so far. I like that it's playable in other decks, but it's at home in this Android 13 archetype. Although, with cards like Rush Attack Vegeta around, like, I don't know if this even really gets played.
Yeah. I would agree with that.
I think it'll see play in Android, but outside of that, I feel like there's already better options, and the 3Z energy cost can be really steep.
This would be really good, in my opinion, with a Bulma deck, because of the Android 17 negate that plays a 1-drop. You can initially just combo that 17 off to put it into your drop area as a combo piece for this or put it into your Z energy, and then kind of cycling that around to get the barrier on this card's effect.
Yeah, and then you get double block. Yeah, I can see that. That's kind of nice.
All right. Going over the 1-drops, we'll start with 13, kind of going in order with numbers. You can absorb once per turn for 1 energy. If you lead a card as red Android 13 card, and your opponent has 3 or more energy, and you place 1 Android 14 and 1 15 card from your drop under this card, play up to 1 Android 13 card with energy cost of 7 from your deck on top of this card in active mode to shuffle your deck afterwards. What I like about that, Fluff, I think, pointed this out to me, it's not color specific, so you can run other colors in this deck if you want to potentially just change it up or tech it out a little bit differently. Auto, when this card is played, look up to 5 cards on top of your deck, add up to 1 Android card with an energy cost of 3 or less among them, and add to your hand and shuffle your deck afterwards.
I think this is the best card that we've seen released so far. Just for the fact that it can tutor out other Android 17s, not just the other Android 13s, not just the Android 13 that was released for this archetype, which is pretty nice. And it kind of opens up a playstyle that might invite a multicolor strategy where maybe you're playing red-green instead of red, or red-yellow-green instead of just red. So we'll see where that goes, but I generally like this card.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first time I've really looked at any of the 1-drops, and already I like the way that this isn't as restrictive as the other pieces of the deck, which kind of makes me wonder, like, what direction they want this to go. It seems like the leader and the Z leader and everything are pretty restrictive, and then this seems pretty open to check out your deck. So it's kind of like to me, the design of this Android 13 archetype overall, at this point, I know we're only like 4 or 5 cards in, it kind of feels like the instructions unclear meme.
Yeah.
Where they just kind of threw everything into it.
Going over 14, auto limit 1. If your leader card is red Android card and all of your energy is mono red, when this card is played, choose 1. If your leader card is red Android 13, Z leader, draw 1 card. Or add up to 1 Android 15 mechanical, the duo to this card, from your deck to your hand, dish off your deck afterwards. I like the idea of that early on it's used for thinning purposes, and then once you Z Awaken, you pretty much could just play it to draw 1 card, which is fantastic. And if I recall correctly, Android 15 is the exact same thing, but we're just swapping that second auto from being a 15, but searching for a 14 from your deck instead.
It's like a red Trunks and Vegeta.
I was gonna say that exactly. Yeah. It kind of goes against what I just said with that Android 13 that might invite multicolor strategies, where this card says if you have 3
all your energy has to be mono red.
All of your energy has to be mono red. That kind of it kind of is taking back what that other card was inviting for the archetype. So it seems like a very unrequired restriction. Like, it's almost unnecessary for me. While I don't think this card is bad by any stretch, it just seems really unnecessary to have that restriction.
Yeah, I think time will tell. Like, if the 14 and 15 end up being really integral to the deck, then we probably won't see multicolor. But if the archetype runs fine without them, which I suspect it might, we could probably see a multicolor strategy with this deck.
On the 1-drop Android 13, we talked about its once return auto, which is Union Absorb. So it will, for the theme of the deck, if you want to play the red, we have Android 13 Total Annihilator, Deflect, Double Strike, which I think is great about this is that auto, once returned, will open a timing window prior to this card coming to play. So if they want to counterplay it, in case you're playing one of the other ones, they're not sure. They'll probably assume you're playing with Deflect, but you can always change it up. Keep that in mind. But this one is Deflect, Double Strike, permanent. If an Android 13 card is under this card gains dual attack and isn't affected by the skills of red Saiyan cards with 20,000 power or less in any of your opponent's areas. When this card attacks, use up to 1 card from under this card in a combo with its skills negated for the turn, and choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards or unisons and it gets minus 20,000 power for the turn. Activate main, limit 1 for 2 energy. If your opponent has 3 or more energy and you choose 1 Android 14 and 1 Android 15 card in your battle area and or drop, play this card and place the chosen cards underneath it. I think that's pretty cool as an alternative way of playing this card. What I don't like is the secondary effect to the permanent. I get it, because in this set theme, the other red deck is the trio of Saiyans. So it kind of, sure, it works on that favor, but in any other matchup, that's not going to mean anything. Isn't affected by skills of red Saiyans. I think it's interesting they're doing that, but I don't think in the long run that's going to mean much.
It's got the same alternate play condition as the 8-drop from Trunks and Vegeta, which I know we already alluded to. So I like that kind of like sub-theme that's going on with the deck. But again, that kind of makes me feel like they just threw like multiple design elements at this thing and tried to see where it goes. This card specifically, I like the double strike dual attack. I'm just worried that at a 7-drop, there's a lot of stuff that can affect it, even though it's got deflect. That will kind of make this card less powerful than it should be.
I'm looking at this archetype and I'm seeing, and we still have a lot to cover. So, it's just kind of this early observation. When you look at the strength of the cards that were released out of set 18, and you look at the strength of these cards, it almost seems like they realized that they messed up in set 18, and they're kind of rolling the wheel back a little bit. These cards just don't hold a candle to Sen or SS4 Goku Vegeta right now. And maybe time will tell a different story, but I'm just not seeing that strength, that power level in these cards. While I like the design of these cards, it feels like these cards would have been at home 2 to 3 sets ago.
And as a reminder, both of these effects, either through the 1-drop and the activate main, your opponent still has to have 3 energy for this. So if you're going first, this is your turn 4 play. If you're going second, this is your turn 3 play if you want to go either one of these options. And I do like, though, the auto because it does help set up the Z leader's ability to be able to do its effects just fine, because it does combo 2 cards per turn per its, if you do the Unizorb way of doing it. Going into the 3-drops, we have Android 15. Auto, when this card attacks, it gets plus 5,000 power for the battle. Activate main / battle, limit 1 for 1 energy. If your leader card is red Android 13 card and you have 2 or more energy and an Android 14 card in your Z energy, your opponent may choose 2 of their battle cards and have them get minus 20,000 power for the turn. If they don't, you draw 1 card and play this card from your hand. I think that's fantastic, because if they only have 1 battle card on the board, it's like, cool, I'll pay 1 acting this effect. You want to neg your card out for me, or you want me a draw and a battle card during your next attack? And I think, if correct, the 3-drop the 14 has a very similar effect, but instead it's blocker. If a red Android 15 card is in your Z energy, at the end of your turn, you switch the card to active mode, and then the activate main / battle leader card is the exact same thing. Yes, it's the exact same thing as well. So I like the interaction of this activate main / battle for these 2 cards.
Either you can kill 2 of your guys, or I get to play my guy
and draw a card.
Yeah, I'd probably let you do that 9 times out of 10.
Yeah,
it's kind of like an interesting take on offering.
I don't mind these cards. I think these cards are perfectly tuned. One of them's got blocker. Does the Android 15 have a skill on him, or is he just a 15k?
He gains 5k when he attacks, so he's a 20k.
He gains 5, so he's a 20k swing. I think these cards are perfectly balanced. There's kind of a give and take. It's an informative type of play where you're making your opponent make a decision for you. I could see this being potentially problematic, where you have to get a 15k out on the field to apply pressure, and your opponent realizes your need to do that, especially the need to set up Z energy. And your opponent's like, okay, I'll just kill 2 of my guys to kind of halt your momentum. I could see that being a potential issue with the archetype, and I don't know why it wasn't neg a card 20k and then play these guys and draw a card. I think that would have been perfectly fine as well.
And kind of going over the rest of the cards, we have the skillless Android 18 to 30k, 3-drop, yada, yada, yada. We have the new super combos. So this is Android 20, Inherent Evil. If your leader is red and your leader is a Z leader, or you have 2 or more Z energy, or you have a Z battle card in play, when this card is using a combo, draw 1. What I like about this card is that it's one of those cards that you could potentially play this anytime. It doesn't require life, where a lot of decks are doing waking at 6 and just kind of staying there. Fantastic. But when it comes to like stuff like Sin, we've already discussed that one. Beerus is probably a better option for something like that. But this could be a secondary go-to if you don't have those combos, because you don't have to rely on your life being 4. But if you have a deck that likes to go down to 4 life, the old combos are probably better in that option.
Mm-hmm.
I think the same. I think this is fine. I don't think it's any worse than the Beerus combo or like a quality combo, honestly.
I'm not sold on the conditions for that combo yet. A couple of them feel conditional, or maybe having to weave yourself through a bad stretch of plays just to be able to turn on these super combos. So I'm not 100% sold on them. I don't think they're terrible by any stretch of the imagination, but I just see myself running quality super combos or Beerus and something like Sen Shenron most of the time anyway.
Oh yeah, like these are definitely not generic. You like play them in a specific strategy where you would meet the conditions, and in that deck, I feel like it's fine.
I will say this card is active immediately in Shin turn 1 though, so
yeah, for sure.
Android 17, finally freed. It's a 3-drop. It has crit. This is a counter attack limit 1. If your leader card is Android 13 card, negate this attack and play this card in rest mode. Permanent. If your leader is red Android 13 Z leader, and your life is 3 or less, You can activate this card's counter skill from your hand without paying any energy cost. I think that's fantastic. It is a one-time counter, but it does play stuff in rest mode. It is a 15k crit. Most times, if your opponent has more swings, they're probably going to continue to take this card out. That way, it's not a pressure unless they know they could go for a game.
Mm-hmm. Where I'm not a big fan of the Z Leader on the Android 13, it makes me like this card less. I love the functional design of this card otherwise, though. I think this card is fine. It's definitely not worth paying 3 energy for in any other strategy. Maybe if it was a floodgate of some kind, but just being a 1 negate that is going to give you a 15k crit that might survive till the next turn, it's not really worth it in other strategies. So it might be a spice for having that Z Leader awaken.
It kind of feels like a worse Haze Shenron.
Yeah, for sure.
And then we have, to wrap it up, 3 extra cards. The first one, Forgotten Capsules. Activate main, place 1 other card from your hand at the bottom of your deck, add up to 114 and 115 card, both red with energy cost of 1 from your deck to your hand, then shuffle your deck afterwards. If you have one of them in your hand, you just bottom deck that card and you pull another one from the deck. That way you're kind of thinning 1 card out, and if you have a useless card in your matchup, boom, you get 2 extra cards in your hand, you get rid of the card you don't need, which is fantastic. We have the Android Assault. It's a counterattack. If your leader card is Android 13, negate the attack and add up to 1 red Android card with energy cost of 1 from your drop to your hand. Permanent. If your leader card is Android 13 Z Leader, you can activate this card's counter skill from your hand by adding 1 card from your life to your hand instead of paying energy cost. I kind of like that. It helps you go down to that 3 if you need to do it for the 17 play afterwards.
Yep.
And then we have SS Deadly Bomber. Activate main. I do not agree with this one if I recall correctly, but if your leader card is Android 13, choose up to 1 of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier, gets minus 20,000 power for the turn, then play up to 114 and 15, both red, which cost 3 from your hand. No, I like that card. I like that card.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest value play we've seen in the entire list.
I was comparing it to, I think, the Trios extra card I did not like.
The Trios extra card was...
Now, this is fantastic. Yeah, so for 2 energy, potentially even on turn 2, because there's not a life condition on this one, you could just get rid of a problematic card and then play 2 3-drops afterwards. Now, granted, this will dramatically thin your hand out that early on the game, but somewhere in mid-game, fantastic play.
Yeah, this card is a huge value swing with the exchange of it's going to eat 3 cards out of your hand, like you just said. So they don't really replace themselves. You're not going to get the draw effects that the cards inherently have on them. So that's kind of a negative in and of itself. You're not really replenishing your hand. But maybe seeing this guy as like a 1 or 2 of in a list just to generate an explosive turn for yourself could be worth it.
These are probably quite good out of the board as well.
So that overall is the Intro 13 deck. Thank you all for tuning in, and stay tuned for more decks down the road and other stuff we got going on, such as profiles and matchups, and check out our weekly videos now. Kind of gives you updates for the week as well. With that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Fluff, would you lead us out?
Yep, absolutely. Make sure to read your cards, know your plays, let us make the mistakes so that you don't have to, and fluff out.